Hello, and welcome to Learn to Communicate with me. Today's lesson, conjugating ER and IR verbs in Spanish. You have already learned the present tense of regular AR verbs. There are two other families or conjugations of regular verbs. Verbs whose infinitives end in ER or second conjugation verbs. Verbs whose infinitives end in IR or third conjugation verbs. Some verbs of the second and third conjugations that you will use frequently are, let's look at the chart, comer, beber, leer, ver, comprender, aprender, creer. And I have the English infinitives or its equivalent on this side of the chart. Here's some more. Abrir, recibir, escribir, and vivir. Notice that their infinitive ending is IR. These are the third conjugation family. The present tense of ER verbs. All Spanish verbs change their endings according to the subject. This is the same concept that you learned when we talked about AR verbs. So, let's take a look at the chart and look at the verb comer, which means to eat. I eat, como. You eat, comes. Usted come, he eats. Él come, he eats. Ella come, she eats. Comemos, E-M-O-S. Comemos, we eat. Ustedes comen, you all eat. Ellos comen, they eat. Ellas comen, they eat. Notice the endings for the ER verbs have changed. They're not the same like the AR verbs. It's O, that's the same. But for tú, it's ES. Usted, ella, or él, the ending is E. The nosotros, nosotras ending is E-M-O-S. And the ustedes, ellos, ellas ending is E-N. Remember, all Spanish verbs change their endings according to the subject. Now we're looking at the verb vivir. The V sounds like B in Spanish. Vivir. This means to live. So vivo, I live. Vives, you live. Vive, usted vive, you live. Él vive, he lives. Ella vive, she lives. Vivimos. The ending here is I-M-O-S. Vivimos, we live. Ustedes viven, you all live. Ellos, ellas viven, they live. Remember, all Spanish verbs change their endings according to the subject. Now, if you look at the ER verb and the IR verb ending, these endings are all the same except for the ER verb, when the subject is nosotros or nosotras, it's E-M-O-S. The IR verb, when the subject is nosotros, nosotras, the ending is I-M-O-S. That is the only difference between conjugating ER verbs and IR verbs. Okay, let's move on. Now, we're looking at the verb ver. Ver means to see or to watch. Look at how it's conjugated. Typically, you would drop the ER and then add the O. But there's a slight difference here in the yo form. It's VE and then O. So veo, I see. Ves, you see. Usted ve, you see. Él ve, he sees. Ella ve, She sees. Nosotros, nosotras vemos. Vemos. We see. Ustedes ven. You all see. Ellos, ellas ven. They see. Now let's practice. Here's a question. ¿Qué comes para el desayuno? What are you eating? I know the subject is you because of how the verb is conjugated. It's ending in ES. What are you eating for breakfast? What are you eating for breakfast? You respond back with yo, and what is your ending going to be? Very good. It's going to be o. Como el cereal. Remember that this is optional because by this verb ending in o, I already know that my subject is I. In Spanish, yo. I'm eating cereal. Yes, in Spanish, it's just like in English, but it's pronounced cereal. Cereal. Now, I would like for you to do los números 2, 3, 4 y 5. ¿Qué aprendes en la escuela? What are you learning? What are you learning en la escuela? ¿Comprendes español? ¿Comprendes español? Do you understand Spanish? ¿Dónde vives? ¿Dónde vives? Where do you live? ¿Ves la televisión? Oh, I forgot my question mark here. ¿Ves la televisión? Are you watching the TV? You may pause the video at this time to practice. Now, I'm going to ask you, ¿qué comen ustedes? What are you all eating? What are you all eating? Para el desayuno. Nosotros is your subject. So what is the ending going to be? Correct. Hemos. Comemos. C-O-M. That tells me the action, eating. The ending, E-M-O-S, tells me who's performing the action. Comemos el cereal. So these are the same questions I asked you here, but I just changed the subject to ustedes. I'm asking you all for all of these. You all. Be very careful to pay attention to which verb is an IR verb. Remember, ER and IR verbs have the same endings except when the subject is nosotros. Now we're going to learn about the verb tener. Tener means to have. The rule is to drop the ending and put the endings that agree according to the subject. But there are always exceptions to the rules. So pay attention to how the verb tener is conjugated. Tengo, it ends in an O, but the stem is T-E-N-G for the yo form. But look at the stem as it changes here. Tú tienes, it's T-I-E-N, and then the ending is E-S. So I'm still using ER verb endings. It's just that in my stem, it's spelled differently. Usted tiene, T-I-E-N-E, tiene, you have. So let's go back here. Tengo, I have. Tienes, you have. Tiene, usted tiene, you have. Él tiene, he has. Ella tiene, she has. Tenemos, again, the stem is different. It's T-E-N. Tenemos. This is E-M-O-S. Tenemos. We have. Ustedes tienen. The stem is different. It's T-I-E-N, and then the ending is E-N. Ustedes tienen. You all have. Ellos, ellas tienen. They have. Now we're going to look at expressions with the infinitive. You have already learned that the infinitive of a verb in Spanish ends in AR, ER, or IR. The infinitive often follows another verb or expression. So here the infinitive tomar is following this conjugated verb. Desean ustedes, which translates to, do you all want? Desean ustedes. Do you all want tomar, to eat? Tomar can mean to have a meal, or it can mean to take. It just depends on the context. You have a lot of verbs like that in Spanish. Here you have the infinitives estudiar and aprender following this conjugated verb debes. Debes translates to you must. Debes estudiar y aprender. You must study and learn. Here are some other useful expressions that are followed by the infinitive. Now, this has to be memorized. This is not something that you can translate literally from English to Spanish or Spanish to English. So, tener que means to have, not meaning that you possess something, but you're going to use this expression, tener que, and the infinitive to say what you have to do. We all are obligated to do something. So, that's when you're going to use this expression, tener que, but you have to conjugate the verb tener. So if you go to the previous chart that I showed you on how to conjugate tener, it will give you the correct forms. And again, the form has to agree according to the subject of the sentence. Here's another expression, ir a plus the infinitive. When do you use this? This is a way to indicate future action. So whenever it says here to be going to do something, you're going to eat, you're going to study. This is when you're going to use this expression. However, you have to conjugate the verb ir. And if you go to the previous chart or previous video on how to conjugate the verb ir, you will see how to conjugate that verb ir, and then you will use an infinitive to indicate the action, the future action. And then we have another expression, acabar de plus the infinitive. This means to have just. So something has already happened, it's in the past. You have just completed something, done something. This expression is equivalent to the present perfect tense or a past action that we use in English. In English, the present perfect tense is either using have or has with the past participle of the verb. So, take for instance the verb to eat. I want to say eaten. That's the past participle. So, I have just eaten. Eaten is the past participle of the verb to eat. It translates in Spanish as yo acabo. We already learned how to conjugate verbs that end in AR. So, yo acabo de comes from this part of the expression, and then I'm going to use an infinitive to say what I've just done, and that is eaten. Yo acabo de comer. This means I have just eaten. Yes, comer does mean to eat, but when it is used with this expression, the infinitive translates to eaten, which is equivalent to the past participle in English. Now, we were talking about infinitives. Here's a reminder of some infinitives that I had shown you in previous lessons. Here are some AR infinitives. Here are some ER infinitives. And here are some IR infinitives. So you will use these expressions with these infinitives. Now, let's look at some examples. Tengo que comer algo. Voy a ir a la cafetería. Yo no. Acabo de comer y no tengo hambre. So here we have the tener que expression. This translates to I have. Tengo que. Que does not have a translation at all. It's just a part of the expression. You have to memorize that. So, tengo que, I have. What do you have to do? To eat. Comer. Algo means something. Now, I want to indicate what I'm getting ready to do in the near future. Voy a. I am going. Again, no translation here for I. It's just a part of the expression. You have to memorize. Voy a. I am going. To go is ir. That's what it translates to. To go. Where are you going to? The cafeteria. Yo no, not me. Someone else says. Yo no, not me. Acabo de comer. Acabo de. I have just. Comer. Eaten. So this person is not going to the cafeteria because it says here, acabo de comer. I have just eaten. Y no tengo hambre. And no tengo hambre is another verbal expression in Spanish. I am not hungry. Now, let's practice. We're looking at more notes here. Tienes que estudiar. Tienes que. Do you have to what? To study. Sí, yes. Tengo que. I have to study. Estudiar. You have to put that que there because you're indicating an activity that you have to do. Vas a. Are you going? Are you going to return? Vas a regresar a casa. Are you going to return home? I'm asking you. You respond back with the yo form. Sí, voy a regresar a casa. I am going to return home. El número tres. Acaban de comer ustedes. Ustedes, I'm asking you all. Have you all just eaten? No acabamos de comer. No acabamos de comer. It's an AR verb, so I'm using AR endings here. No, we have not just eaten. No acabamos de. No, we have not just comer, eaten. This now concludes our lesson for conjugating ER, IR verbs, as well as learning about expressions with the infinitives. Please like my page, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and have a great day from Learn to Communicate with me.